you are a winemaker, you are an artist, you are a comedian, you are you got them all.
I like to consider myself a jack of all trades, but master of none. And I'm okay with that. I have a lot of passions and a lot of things I love to do in life, and so I do. I spend my time with my family first, and other than that, I like to follow my heart. And when I follow my heart, it leads me to great people like you. It leads me to opportunities like writing
Thank you.
about wine, and it was writing about wine and writing for Lonely Planet travel guides that got me into the wine world, and so just gonna keep following my heart, and never know where it leads
That's
me.
awesome. Thank you for being here today. So you're a winemaker. You're a good winemaker. I got a pleasure to taste your wines yesterday, and a few months back when the Napa Red came out, the collaboration and partnership between you and Cedric the Entertainer. How did you start all of this? How did you start the world of wine? How long have you been in the industry?
It started, man, nearly 20 years ago when I had the opportunity to write about wine for a magazine called 7 by 7. And it was right at the time when SEO, search engine optimization, was becoming a thing. And they invested heavily. And so I wrote my first article about wine. And I chose not to write about the flavor profiles or scores or anything like that, but rather just the experience, like a travel writer. And I got 350,000 reads on that first article. And
Wow.
everyone in Napa, or not everyone, but many people in Napa and even Italy started to reach out and say, hey, we'd like you to come to our winery and talk about our wines and our space. And so I spent 10 years traveling, writing
Wow.
about wine and telling other people's stories. And that's really where I fell in love with wine. Previously, I had been a bartender. I lived in Santa Barbara. They make great wines down there. My mom, when I was a kid, took me up to Napa and had exposed me to different wineries while I found it very boring when I was young. As a matter of fact, at one point I was up there. My mom was collecting her, I think it was her wine club from Chateau Montelena, and I was thinking, you know what? One of these days, I'm gonna buy a vineyard up here, and I'm gonna tear it down and buy a horse because there's got to be something better to do. And so it was really the experience of writing and telling other people's stories that got me excited about wine and got me into the industry, because I fell in love with the stories. I fell in love with the idea of taking this beautiful thing from this earth, something that's been done for thousands of years, and not change it, but continue it.
That's so true. Like, I think there's so many beverages out there, but to me, it's only wine that you start sipping on it and it brings so much good conversation with it. I mean, you can go grab a shot of Hennessy or like, Patron or something, but it doesn't bring those conversations. Usually brings a punch and like fight.
Right? Yeah, no, wine is definitely something that's magical in that it's greater than the sum of its parts. At the end of the day, it's fermented grape juice, right? I tell people sometimes I'm a farmer and a drug dealer, just to simplify things. But the reality is that there's so much history to wine. And when you open a bottle, the people with whom you share that wine become a part of your story. And you share a story around a wine. You share that flavor profile. And it doesn't need to be the whole story, but it is a connecting factor.
Absolutely.
It's not fast like a shot. It's not crack it open and drink it before it gets warm like a beer. It's pull the cork out, pour some of it, and pour some more. And I think that, again, one of my favorite things to do is learn that people are celebrating with my wine. They're not celebrating the wine, but rather they're celebrating life and celebrating the people that they love. And they're celebrating those people, those central parts of their joy, using something that I make. And that's my favorite part. And I learn with my wine club members that they're continuing to do that over a period of years. And that when we started the winery, that was why I didn't want our theme or our logo or our saying to be anything about the quality of the wines or our farming or vineyards or even sustainability, but rather about story. And that's why our motto is every bottle tells a story. We hope that our bottles become a part of your story. And so I still feel that way. Being a part of people's stories is the most beautiful part of being a vintner.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit, but what exactly changed from a guy that was bored by wine, now fascinated and have his own vineyard? Just mainly for the people that they have a same feeling. They're like, oh my God, wine, who has the time for that?
Yeah, well, it can be intimidating, and people can make it intimidating, and they can hoard
Absolutely.
knowledge, and they can talk down to you. And I think for a long time, a very small group of people had the wine knowledge, and they coveted it. But now it's more and more people are welcoming wine, and they're understanding wine, and they're realizing that if they like it, that's
Yeah,
okay. It makes it good. And what changed for me, what made it less intimidating, was just meeting people and focusing on the story of the wine and accepting the idea that if I like it, that's okay.
absolutely.
I was really nervous to order wine the first few times I went to a restaurant in Napa Valley. Like I don't know what the right thing to do is. And I had met sommeliers who made me feel really bad. Like, I think I'm gonna get a Zinfandel. Like, ooh, wow. With that, like, oh, no, I guess not. And then I would order something like with a big brand name because I'm like, okay, I know this is safe. And everybody would be like, no, 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 we're gonna get something a small family owned. We're not gonna order that. I'm like, oh, blew it again. But the reality is, it wasn't that I was choosing things that weren't going to pair well or that it weren't great wines. They just weren't potentially right for that situation. And even in that scenario, who chooses what's right for a situation?
Exactly,
The
right?
people that you're with. And so you talk to them, say, I'm thinking about ordering a Zinfandel because I like Zinfandel. Somebody might say, well, that's not going to pair well with what you're ordering. I say, oh, well, that's okay. I wasn't planning on having a food pairing. I'm going to enjoy a glass of Zinfandel.
Absolutely.
And that's cool too.
I think that's the best wine, the wine that you enjoy.
Right.
So many people ask me, they're like, okay, what is the best wine you got? I'm like, what do you like?
Right.
That's the best wine you have. It might be Moscato. I'm not going to judge you. And then I think one of the reasons that people get the fear of entering this world is, unfortunately, for those small amount of people, maybe sommeliers, that they have a chip on the shoulder. They treat the consumer or the newbies to the point that they don't want to enter it at all.
Yeah. No,
So
it builds walls. It absolutely does. And I think for these days, there are fewer and fewer people who are like that. But I think for a long time, the
yeah,
vast majority of people with that knowledge weren't necessarily sharing it in a way that others found accessible or welcoming. And so I love to see that that's changing. And, I do want to at least make this statement that not all wines are created equal. There are a lot of flavored powders out there. There are a lot of vineyards that are not being farmed sustainably, by which I mean farming practices that are not okay for the earth and may also have a negative impact on the drinker. But once you get to a certain level of wine where you actually have a product that is being made from the earth, that is being made respectfully, both from from the standpoint of the glass that's being chosen, the paper, but also the components that are going into the wine. It's one thing to add, say, a concentrate, which is a very common thing. A concentrate is just a juice. It's organic. It is from the grapes. It's just used to cover up issues that you might have in the vineyard. And you see vineyard issues all the time. And so what this is a concentrate that's going to cover up some impurities and make it a little better, perhaps. And that there's no problem with that. Hopefully you don't have to do that. But then you have other people who are making wines they don't care at all, and they're adding flavored powders to them. And those flavored powders are not going to be easy to digest. Organic or not, they're not going to be a healthy additive to the wine. And you suddenly are giving somebody something that I think in many cases they're assuming is a product of the earth that is sustainable or that is healthier than other alcohols, when in reality now they are drinking chemicals. So it is worth knowing not necessarily everything about the wine, but at least the person or the family or the winery that's making your wine, finding a reputable source for any product that you buy.
absolutely. So right here, I have 2 bottles of Setta wine.
That's true.
These are the collaboration and the partnership that you have between yourself and Cedric the Entertainer.
That's right.
Tell me about that. How did you start it? What made you to start collaboration? And take me with you in that.
Well, we have a friend in common, so it started there, but really it started with friendship and philanthropy. Cedric and I met over a period of time, developed a friendship, and it was filled with just laughter and fun and kindness. And that laughter and that fun and that kindness led us to a day in the vineyard where we spent the majority of the day laughing and learning and talking about wines. And so it was from that experience where we said, you know what, this could be more than just a friendship. Let's see what we can do. And we talked about philanthropy. And his mother was a wonderful woman. She taught English. She was a literacy professional, and she gave back to her community. And so Cedric created a foundation called Red Rose Reads in order to honor her and her commitment to literacy. And so this wine now follows suit in that it donates back to that foundation and
Which is
celebrates
awesome.
his mom, whose name is on it. And that was one of the most important things to me in this partnership, was that Cedric wasn't like, yo, we're gonna call this Ced's Red. This is gonna be all about me. You can use my name and my face, but I'm not really gonna be involved. For him, it was like, I want this to be really personal. I care, and I'm gonna be a partner in this. And for me, my grapes, I love my grapes. I love the wines that we make. It's a huge part of who I am. And so if I'm going to share that with somebody, I want it to be with somebody who really does care and who's going to be involved. And Cedric is. He's a kind, thoughtful human being with a
Absolutely.
family and group of friends that's welcoming and they care. And he really cares. So that makes all the
Absolutely.
difference.
Absolutely. I think you both, the passion that you have for your wine and the passion that Cedric has for his vision, his mom, his family, and everything. The collaboration overall is definitely one of the best. I mean, you look at the bottle. Um, I learned about the label that this is a view from his sister's window. So that shows how personal this bottle is. And then now you have three bottles. You have a Napa Red, you have the California Red, which is here, and California White.
That's right.
And these are your two hottest bottles that they haven't hit the market yet.
No, we just expanded. We started with Napa Valley because that's where we farm and that's where we met and that's where the vineyards are. And we wanted to make something truly great. And so we started small. We started with 100 cases. And in the world of wine, anything below 35,000 is considered boutique. So the fact that we start with 100, that's not even on the scale. But that's okay because we weren't chasing money. What we wanted to do is make something really fine, something really beautiful, and also learn to trust each other in business. And so we built that, started that wine. We grew it a little bit and grew it a little bit. But we've always talked about accessibility, about who he is as a comedian and as a human being. Is people feel like he's part of the family. And we wanted a wine that people could bring into their homes, no matter how much money they make or spend on wine. And the Napa Valley wine, it's incredibly expensive to make. So while
Absolutely.
we're 50%, I would say, of the competitive set, you see $100, $150 Napa Valley red blends of equal quality. Ours is between $45 and $65. What you see there is a really great value, but $65 is still a lot to spend on 4 or 5 glasses of wine, which is what you get in a bottle. And so with California, we're still utilizing family farmed fruit, everything's handmade, and we're able to create a equally high quality product, but at a much lower price point. And so now we can get into more homes, be more accessible. We can say authentically that we love these wines, that they're sustainable, that they're beautiful world-class wines, and now they're going to be between $20 and $30. And so we'll maintain our Napa Valley one. We're going to keep making that forever, but now we get to involve even more people in the story.
That's cool. I'm gonna take it a little bit off the topic, and then we're gonna get back to the wine and get a little bit more technical about this. So, how is it working with Cedric?
It's fantastic. Like I said, this is a friendship first kind of project. But
Okay.
what we do is we laugh all the time. He's got an incredible sense of humor. He does, the different voices. We both don't mind getting into other personalities. It's almost like we'll shift into these silly different spaces, and it will go on. We have running jokes. We have late night text chains, and I would say 30% of our conversations are about wine, and 70% are about life, family, and just funny things. We've got a running theme right now where we always talk about how we're going to do, what are you going to wear? It's like, well, dude, I'm going Lion King theme tonight. And it's like, all right, well, you're going to be the muskrat, and I'll be the muskrat. And so wherever we're going, we always have different themes of like what we're going to dress, what we're going to wear. And we just carry that through life, this lighthearted joie de vivre, this joy, this fun, and the idea of bringing joy to others. That's what carries our conversations. And that's what carries this relationship, is a sense of joy and kindness and philanthropy.
That's pretty cool. Is it hard when you kind of like send him the samples or the blends that you made? Is it difficult to work with on those, or like no, like usually with the first blend or two, he's pretty satisfied?
It depends, the first wine that we made, the Napa Valley wine, there were countless blends. I mean, ABC after ABC after ABC after ABC, and shifts and changes. I was involving a lot of other growers and friends that I have, and so I was using their wines, Cab Franc, all these things that I don't grow, which is fine because we trade barrels and we sell each other wine and grapes all the time in
Mm-hmm.
Napa Valley. So it wasn't unusual, but there were just so many different things. And ultimately, he selected a blend that was all the things that I grew, and that was wonderful and made it simple and easy. But that was a year and a half of figuring things
Oh
out,
wow.
and it wasn't always easy. Then we made the red blend. I already had a really good idea of what he loved. But California grapes are very different than Napa Valley
Mm-hmm.
grapes, and so we went through, you know, again ABC after ABC after ABC after ABC. But at that point, I really had a better sense of exactly what his palate was like and what he was going to enjoy. And it's always got to be authentic to me. So there's a push and pull where it's like, I really wish it had more flavors like this. And I'm kind of like, well, I don't actually love that, but I hear what you're saying. And what I hear you saying is you want it to be more fruit forward. And I feel like if we have more Zinfandel in this blend, you're going to get what I want, what you want, and I'm still going to be able to have this be something that I authentically love, and from a grape source, from a family grape source that I know and trust. And so there's push and pull. The white blend was it came really easily, actually. I think we did 6 different blends, or it was 3 sets of 3 blends, and it was easy because 2 of the 3 that I sent, he was like, nope, do not like those. And it was very clear he was not into Chardonnay. I was like, got it. We are not going to
Okay.
blend Chardonnay into this. And so then we went into Sauvignon Blanc, and I don't make really grassy or grapefruity or acidic Sauvignon Blancs. So and he doesn't like those either. So we were already in this really nice space where we were kind of in lockstep. And then it just came down to, what are we going to blend into that Sauvignon Blanc to really create a flavor profile that you love, and something that I love, and something that we think that the consumer is going to love as well. And, like I said, I think that was, just 9 different things, and we nailed it on the 9th one.
That's awesome. No, that's really good. All right, what do we have here today?
What we're drinking right now, this is the Setta Napa Valley Red Blend, and that is, I believe it to be a Merlot-driven blend. Our Merlot is big and bold and spicy. Some people even confuse Smith Devereux Merlot for Cabernet because of the way that we farm it and the way that we treat it. We respect it like they do in France as a truly beautiful and unique grape. And so I sense this as a Merlot-driven wine, which means that it's going to have lots of fruit. It's going to have, those berry flavors. It's going to have plum. It's going to have a nice round mouthfeel. Merlot is often, I say, a feminine grape, not necessarily in flavor, but in terms of curvaceousness. And that experience of curvaceousness definitely comes through in this wine, very silky and smooth. And so it's got that beautiful feminine Merlot aspect that's fruit forward. And then you also have Syrah, which is big and brooding and dark. And I tend to think of that as chocolate. And I tend to think of that as really ripe plum and boysenberry. And I think that is a really nice component for depth and for weight and for mouthfeel, something that's really going to add substance. And then we also have, of course, the Napa Valley Cabernet. And that's where you get your structure and your spice. That's where you're going to get that elevated sense where people taste this like, oh, I love the Merlot. I love the Syrah. These are really nice, round, supple, rich flavors. Then you get that cab, and it's like, okay, now we've got structure, we've got complexity, we've got spice. And so you bring all of that together, and you've got a really complex, rounded, but very cohesive and silky, smooth red blend. And that's what Setta is: silky smooth, rich, fruit forward, sustainably farmed, as good as it gets, Napa Valley fruit.
Brother, you did amazing with this. Cheers to you.
Cheers, my friend. Thank you for having me on here today.
Of course, yeah. This is definitely, as you're explaining, you get that body, you got that structure here. And I love the finish because you get that kind of like green pepper notes to it, which Syrah and the Cap brings it. And which I kind of saw that in your California red too. You still kept that pepperiness to it too, which I think that's a great pair with any type of food right now. Like I would pair it with my steak. I would pair it with my spaghetti too.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we strive for at Smith Devereux, is creating wines that are balanced and rich and supple, and we're not trying to recreate the wheel. I don't want to make a wine that you can collect for 20 years. I want to make a wine that's going to go with what you're eating now. I want to make a wine that isn't going to take over the story or necessarily get 100 points, while we happen to do that on this wine at the Los Angeles International Wine Competition, which is one of the most reputable and an invitational. So a very challenging wine competition to get into. And so to get a best in a class on 100 points was incredibly wonderful and very unique experience. And in the 14 years that I've been doing this, and all the people that I know, I've only seen from a truly reputable source like that. I've only seen a few 100 points. And so that was wonderful to receive that. And for me, to get 100 points from a reputable competition is more meaningful than from, say, a magazine. Because in a magazine, you got one person who's tasting wines with one flavor profile, one perspective, and that person is going to make a decision as to what they think the wine is. And I've never met another person who thinks the same thing that I do about wine. And if you have, that's cool. But the reality is we all taste things differently. We see things differently. We prefer different things at different times of the year and of our lives and of the day. And so one person giving 100 points, cool. That's just like one person saying they like your shirt.
One man opinion.
That's right. Whereas when you go to a competition, you get 8 people, 8 trained people, 8 paid people for a number of days sitting around a table with a directive to find the best wines. And so in 4 days, a table specifically assigned to Napa Valley red blends or to red blends of similar quality, for them to sit there for those 4 days, discuss it, work with a grand somm, and then decide together that it's a 100-point wine and best in class. Now that I'm grateful for. And so, the accolades don't make the wine. It's the wine, hopefully, that earns the accolades. But
Absolutely.
It's really meaningful to have received so many great accolades for these wines.
That is so true. That I think like one person opinion, no matter who it is, it never gives a justification. Just because wine is so personal. Like you might drink this and get some type of notes from it that I would never get that. Excuse me. So, and that's something that people are scared of. Like they drink it and they are like start telling us what they're getting, and they have kind of like a fear in their voice that, am I saying the correct thing? Am I getting the right thing? That's not important. What you're getting is important. I think that's a key factor on that. About the competition, tell me about it. How this whole system works, how the pointing system works. Is it important? Should people look at the point when they are buying the stuff, or should they look at the taste profile? How that whole thing works, if you want to kind of like summarize it for me.
Well, there are magazines, as we talked about. In magazines, you're going to have one person that chooses a score. So if you agree with that person's, like if you get one of their 100-point wines or 95-point wines and you love it, well, yeah, it's a pretty good chance you have a similar palate to that human being. But even then, they may have other motives. They may be deciding that they're not choosing 100 points or 95 points because they love the wine, but rather because they can save it for 20 years or because it tastes like something that they love from another country. You really don't know why they're choosing that. But you can start by thinking, okay, if this person chose to give high score to these wines and I like them, I have a similar palate. So that's okay. You can follow that person. You can also, go to look at who's won different competitions. Competitions are going to be big groups of people deciding. And so that has more to do with quality overall, rather than the subjective choice of whether somebody likes a wine or not, or it meets a certain standard set by rather arbitrary standards in my mind set by a magazine. Is this a wine that's loved by a group of professionals in the wine industry that were hand selected and paid to be there to taste thousands of wines and choose the best? So it's really fun to try wines that have won competitions because you're getting a larger group coming together. And so again, you may not agree with these people, but at least you know that it's a group of professionals that are agreeing together. Mostly what I think though is read stories. Learn a little bit about the basic varietals. You don't need to go learn about every region or every kind of wine, but read what people say. Go to Wikipedia and read what it says about Zinfandel. Zinfandel is a grape that tends to be sweeter than most. It tends to be bigger and more fruit forward and more playful. It's easy drinking. Cabernet, more difficult. It's more intense. It's more structured. Pinot tends to be a little funky. And so you've got 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 red varietals that you may want to look into. Merlot, Cab, Syrah, and just try one. Get a bottle that's between $15 and $20 and try it and see what you think. You'll know pretty quickly if you like Syrah or not. And don't let anybody tell you if they're not. Buy a Pinot, see if you like that. And then once you find a couple things that you like, a Sauvignon Blanc, a Chardonnay, then expand into that category. Get to know Sauvignon Blanc. By getting a couple other bottles. Buy a $5 bottle from Trader Joe's and buy a $30 bottle from Total Wines. And talk to somebody at Total Wines, because they'll tell you, they can walk you through the aisles and say, oh, you like this? I think you'll probably like that too. Their staff is fantastic, and that they really understand what's on the shelves, and they're able to listen to you and direct you towards things that are going to fit your price point and what you're looking for. And that's why I do love coming in here. But yeah, follow your heart, follow your palate, and just spend a little bit of time to figure out what you like. And then you can start trying different things. It's like, once you know that you like Syrah, cool. All right, you know what an expensive Syrah tastes like, and you know what a less expensive Syrah tastes like, and then you know what a very cheaply made Syrah tastes like. Now you can say, all right, cool. I want to figure out what a Washington Syrah tastes like. And you can buy 2 from Washington and try them. Be like, okay, in both of these, I taste this, and the characteristic of the land will be there. And so for me, it's just take the time to explore. Figure out what you like, and then honor that. And just know that what you like will change. And that's the beauty of the world of wine. You start in one place, like my first love was Pinot, and then it was Zinfandel, and then it was Cab, and then it was Cab Franc, and then it was, Grenache, and then Syrah. It evolves just like everything else in life. What you enjoy is going to change. And if you're in a really bad mood, you might want a really soft wine. Or if you're in a really good mood, you might want to have a really bright and cheery wine. So oftentimes I prefer to pair my wines with my mood more than my food.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Oh yeah, on your next hot diet date, I would recommend something with some pepper and some spice.
There you go. Yeah, that's why I usually go with the Zinfandel.
There you go. You don't want to serve a soft, flabby wine, on a hot date.
All right, that's awesome. So you're in California. You're in Napa. What do you think about Napa today, and how long are you planning to stay there?
Napa's my home, and I love it there. People don't understand that it's a rural agricultural community. People see these big, beautiful, grand wineries, and they think that it's like a Disneyland for wine lovers. But the reality is, we're a tiny little community filled with people who are kind and thoughtful. We're stewards of the earth. We farm sustainably. We care about each other, and we know each other's children. It's it's a wonderful community. It's primarily Caucasian and Hispanic. But what I've loved to see is that there are more Black winemakers. There are more people of Middle Eastern descent. There are more people from all over the world coming to Napa and living there. And so I think that diversity is the biggest thing that the community still lacks. I look very forward to the time where there's even more diversity in our home, and welcome that. And I think we all really do. And we're seeing it every single day. It becomes a more diverse place. And that is a beautiful thing. That's what I want for my kids.
Absolutely.
Is to be surrounded by people who speak different languages, who respect each other in different ways, who believe in different gods and have different faiths, and expose them to that. We're all humans. Everything else is just a label we're choosing. And as far as I'm concerned, let's invite humanity and stop caring at all about why we're different, and focus on what makes us the same beating hearts, the same dreams, the same love, the same fears in so many ways. And so Napa Valley is a beautiful place, and I love being there. It is, among the best places in the world to grow grapes, wine grapes. And so very grateful that to be true. People wonder what makes Napa special, or what makes certain regions special. Well, it's a concept the French call terroir, and that has to do with everything from the soil to the weather, to everything, the breezes, the clouds, the quality of the sun, the heat, the length of the seasons, the diurnal shifts, that is to say how different the temperature is at night versus day. All of that stuff comes together, and there's some very, very special places on this planet that have everything just right to grow specific kinds of grapes. And Bordeaux is one of them, and Napa Valley is another. And my hat is off to the people here in Georgia or Colorado or Vermont and most of these places that are now kind of burgeoning wine places, even Arizona, because it is so hard to grow grapes and make wine in these places, because the earth isn't made that way. Nature has not selected these specific locations to grow grapes. And so you're fighting against everything around you in order to achieve greatness in a bottle. And Napa Valley's not that way. It's really easy. And so people make wines in Napa Valley that don't end up so well. It's sort of like, wow, that's sort of a hard thing to do. All you got to do is get out of the way. Mother Nature's going to take care of this for you.
Absolutely.
And you see it, especially in people who really want to put their name on it, want to change it, want to change wine, want to make sure people know it's their wine, as opposed to just sort of following what's best in the vineyard. And so you do see wines of unique qualities coming out of Napa Valley. But on the whole, it's a sweet, kind, thoughtful, resilient community that's been through fires, that's been through so many different things. And the few of us that actually live there are really proud to live there.
That's awesome. If you ever want to live somewhere else and do what you're doing, where would that be?
For a while, I would have said Washington and Oregon, just because they were growing so quickly and everything was new. It was like a new frontier. But now they're really well established, and so less so. And I love Paso Robles and I love Santa Barbara. And so for me, it would be getting back to being close to the beach. And so I think at the end of the day, somewhere in Santa Maria or somewhere coastal in California. I would love to move to Italy at some point as well, but I got 2 young kids and I want to spend my time as close to them as humanly possible. And so I think California makes the most sense, but I would love at some point to go to Italy, go to France, even Croatia. I think would be wonderful. There are wines coming out of Croatia that I think could be really cool. Go back to Georgia, not in as much as I love it here. This Georgia, I'm talking about the European sort of version. And so I think that there are a lot of different opportunities, but for now, I'm pretty happy in Napa.
So in Napa, is it filled? Do you still have room for new winemakers if they want to start?
Winemakers, yes. Brands, I would suggest probably not. There are so many brands. It feels as though a lot of them are falling out. A lot of people come to the wine industry and think that just having a great idea or even great juice is enough. Patience is what it takes. 10 years of being in the industry and meeting people and understanding what really goes into these wines and to selling them. But if you are a young winemaker and you're willing to respect tradition and pay your dues, I think that there's absolutely room to become a winemaker. And the other thing to think about is you don't have to necessarily be a winemaker to be truly involved. You can start as an intern. You can work in a restaurant in Napa Valley, because working in a restaurant in Napa Valley, the wines that you carry and the people who are going to be ordering them, it's a wealth of knowledge everywhere around you. You can learn how to work in the vineyard. You can learn all the different things that go into viticulture. You can be a scientist. You can be an engineer. If you're a scientist, you can learn about the componentry of wine and what goes into it. You can be an engineer and work on the different machines, optical sorters that some of the bigger wineries use. We do everything by hand because we're small, but there's so many different things. We're now looking at all electric tractors. And so there's a room for the environmentalist and the engineer to be involved in this industry. And, I consider myself a vintner. That's my technical title. And what a vintner is a CEO, if you will, within the wine industry. Everything sort of comes back to me. But I have help. I've got a consulting winemaker who has been, it's my 5th one now, who helps me continue my program seamlessly because I choose to be on the road to spend time with you. Absolutely. I don't have time to check the bottling line. So we have somebody that helps with the bottling line. I have somebody who helps me in all different aspects, just like I have an accountant that helps me with my billing. And so, winemaker is a wonderful thing to be, but it's only one of the many really beautiful things that go into the wine industry. So if it's something you love, I think that no matter what you're good at, I think there's a space for you here.
So is it time consuming for you? Like, how is your day-to-day look like? Do you still get to have a time to your family, to yourself? Anything beside wine, or no, you're pretty much in it?
Yeah, no, as we sort of started this conversation with, I have a variety of passions, and I do indulge in them. So wine is, family is the biggest part of my life. I coach my son's baseball team. I come home early when I can. I spend a lot of time with my family first, because I had a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I want to just soak that up. So family comes first, and then wine is a huge part of my day and part of my time. But as with so many jobs now, there's a lot that can be done from home. And so I like to work in my living room where my kids are running around. And, then there's a lot of time at the, the vineyard, or, we just bottled last week. So a ton of time around that. But even then, bottling itself takes one day. But the preparation from dealing with the blending and all the other things, you got a full year, I guess, leading up to it. So it's nonstop. You get to January, February, things slow down a little bit, but if you don't keep up with things in January, February, when March comes around, then you're just trapped. So for us, it's a year-round job, but it's a beautiful lifestyle. It's one that goes with the cycle of the earth, and I get to play music. I'm in a band, and I love doing that. I get to coach my kids' baseball team. I spend a lot of time doing what I consider to be healthy activities and eating well. We're an agricultural community, so we've got a lot of great food around, and so I'm able to really follow my heart a lot, and I make time for that.
What I like about you, Ian, is that you're you're playing the game and you're enjoying the game. It's not the end of it for you that matters. It's not the end game basically. You're enjoying the game and you're really good at it. You're
Well,
really good at it. No, kudos to you. Kudos to you. Shout out to you.
thank you, man.
So so
Well,
you
I really feel like the more you focus on the result of your actions, the less you're present while you're there, and the less present you are,
yeah.
the less you get out of the result. And so for me, I try not to think about money or success or any of those things in the traditional, we'll see, American way. But I think in many ways it's becoming global, or maybe I should say capitalistic way. I think of success at a very simple level in terms of how much joy I can bring to myself and to others without hurting anyone. And that means following a pretty strict moral code and keeping an open mind and being humble and being kind and being loving and just taking things as they come. And my belief is that if I continue to do that, the results don't really matter because the
Absolutely.
process is what matters.
Which ultimately makes the awesome, perfect result as well.
It's worked out well recently. Yeah.
So you play in a band. What do you play?
I play guitar.
Play guitar.
I do, yeah.
And what's the band's name?
We're the band High Noon. We just
Okay.
played Bottle Rock, which is really cool. 45,000 person festival, and we're playing
Nice.
all over the Bay Area. We have an album out called Swell. You can find it on Spotify and iTunes and all those things. And we've got some more singles we're going to be releasing. I'm also in a duo called Rhodes Devereux, and so that's just getting started. And that's a little bit different, but generally speaking, I'd say we're alternative rock with the '90s rock influence.
Nice.
And then with Rhodes Devereux, it's sort of more of a country and influence, but still, again, I would say rock and roll is the heart and soul of what we do. That just leans more into more of a Tom Petty would be a major influence there, and I would also say Need to Breathe would be our influences. Whereas when you're talking about the band High Noon, you're talking Stone Temple Pilots and some of those more '90s, real rock bands.
What do you think about that genre in today's music?
I love it. I think a lot of people shun the '90s as a musical era, but for me, it was the birth of what I think is really, emotional music. Is men and women coming out and talking about mental health issues. People don't think about it, but you think about like Kurt Cobain songs. You think about Stone Temple Pilots. You think about Red Hot Chili Peppers. This
Hmm.
is a time where really tough guys with tattoos started to sing about love and about loneliness and about being under the bridge and about struggles with alcoholism and marriage. You're talking about a period of time where people were really singing about what many of the things we're now dealing with again in terms of mental health, in terms of violence, in terms of this need to be celebrated as an individual instead of celebrating humanity as a whole. And so, what I love about the '90s is it was the birth of that. And it was okay to sing a song, married, buried, as Kurt Cobain said, as he struggled through his life with marriage.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just, there was a depth to the music, and there's a lot of artistry to that music. And it was an infusion of jazz and rock and roll and grunge and, just many different eras coming together. And so for me, it's really cool to see that returning and to see that honesty in the music. And I love it.
It has a big and heavy responsibility on the shoulder when it comes to the men's mental awareness. Because I feel like you see it in a day to day for a moment is completely ignored. Like you don't see people talking about it. You don't see like none of that. So it's very important, and I appreciate you guys going that route. Definitely one of my favorite genre. For the longest time, I was like a little bit sad that why nobody plays this anymore. Why you don't see this anymore? Like me growing up, like especially a little bit later, I grew up with Linkin Park,
Right.
and then after like the main vocalist killed himself, then that whole thing it went to nothing. Like you don't hear that, you don't hear anybody playing in that genre. Which other genres are good too. I'm not. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying like that, and you see the gap.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see it return, and to continue that conversation about mental health. And I think it's a wonderful thing for people to be able to sing and express themselves with music, because locking these things up. It's the funniest thing. People always like, you get sick, you go see a doctor. Your body gets sick, you go see a doctor. You go to a professional that understands how your body works and what might be happening. And then specifically men, but I think all human beings, something's going wrong in your mind. It's like, dude, deal with it, man up. Whatever else is being told, or the idea of going to see a therapist or talking to somebody who understands neurology, somebody who understands emotion, somebody who understands trauma. You go to them, you're giving up, you're weak. But you're just going to see a brain doctor. You're going to see a mind doctor. Your body's hurt, go see a body doctor. Your brain's hurt, you're hurting on the inside, go see a mind doctor. And so I love the idea that music, and in all ways, can push people into the acceptance that it's okay to see somebody. And I also love this idea that strength comes from fighting through. Well, I think real strength is acknowledging that you need help. It is so much harder to acknowledge that you need help than it is to ignore it, or to then embody that pain and always project it onto somebody else, and frequently onto somebody you love. I mean, and so it's an interesting paradox, and I love that 90s music, and that this genre of music, I think, addresses that. And in the results of all of the death of these singers, Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, there's such a big list of male singers who struggled through, whether it be drug addiction, which again is probably secondary or tertiary to trauma, that was unaddressed. So anyway,
that's a whole topic. That's a whole topic that one day we should get into.
Correct.
It's
yes.
one of my passion topic. But all right, bring that a little bit out. Back into this, I want to kind of wrap this up by cheersing to you, your work, your art, and everything that you have provided for us and people that they're going to bring this to their house and enjoy it.
Cheers. And to you for being a storyteller, because it's an art. And if people don't tell the stories, nobody hears anything. It's been forgotten, I think, in culture, especially in this mistrust of media and things, just how important in our culture storytellers are. They're the one who shares the stories of the past. And if we don't learn from the past, we're destined to repeat the mistakes we made in it. So here's to you for telling our stories.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
In real quick, where they can find you?
You can find me at smithdevereux.com. If you look up Smith Devereux, SMITHDEVEREUX, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok and all those other places at Ian Devereux White, or at Smith Devereux Wines. But I encourage you to go to the website. Go to smithdevereux.com. You can contact me directly from there. My cell phone number's on there. My email's on there. One of the things I pride myself in is accessibility and authenticity. And I don't see how you can be accessible or authentic if you don't make yourself available as a human to the people who are enjoying the things that you make.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for being here today, spending time with us, and with everything that is going on with your life and your calendar, you're still making that time. That is lots of love and highly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.